The year is 1812. The world is still reeling from the Napoleonic Wars in Europe, but across the Atlantic, another war is about to explode. A war fought between the United States and the British Empire. A conflict that would define national identities, reshape borders, and set the stage for future global powers. But why did this war happen? What led the young American Republic to take on the might of the British Empire? And how did a war that ended in a stalemate create legends like Andrew Jackson and give birth to America's national anthem? This is the story of the War of 1812, a war of ambition, survival, and forgotten glory. Why did the war start? The War of 1812 wasn't just a sudden outburst. It had been brewing for years. There were three key reasons that led to war. First, British interference with American trade. Britain and France were locked in a brutal war in Europe. To weaken France, Britain imposed trade restrictions that severely hurt American merchants. American ships were constantly seized by the British Navy, crippling U.S. trade and frustrating American businessmen. Second, the British practice of impressment. One of the most infuriating issues was impressment. The British Navy forcibly took American sailors from U.S. ships, claiming they were deserters. Between 1803 and 1812, thousands of American sailors were kidnapped and forced into British service. Third, expansion and Native American resistance. The U.S. was expanding westward, but British-backed Native American tribes fought to resist American settlers. Britain supplied weapons to tribes like the Shawnee, led by the famous warrior Tecumseh, who aimed to unite Native nations against U.S. expansion. Frustrated and enraged, the United States declared war on Britain on June 18, 1812. But what many Americans didn't realize? They had just picked a fight with one of the most powerful empires on Earth. The war saw battles fought on land, at sea, and even in the White House. Here are the main forces involved. United States President James Madison led the war effort. The U.S. had a small, poorly trained army. British Empire, Britain was still fighting Napoleon but had a massive navy and experienced troops. Britain had support from Native American tribes and Canadian militias. Native American Confederacy, led by Tecumseh, the Shawnee and other tribes allied with Britain to resist U.S. expansion. Key battles and turning points. The War of 1812 had moments of utter disaster for the U.S., but also some of its greatest victories. The invasion of Canada, a disastrous start. The U.S. assumed Canada would welcome them as liberators. Instead, the British and Canadians repelled every invasion, with key victories at Queenston Heights and Chateauguay. British General Isaac Brock and Shawnee leader Tecumseh turned the tide against the Americans. The burning of Washington in 1801 for a humiliating defeat. In August 1814, British forces stormed into Washington, D.C. The British burned the White House, the Capitol, and other government buildings. President Madison barely escaped as First Lady Dolly Madison saved George Washington's portrait. The Battle of New Orleans, the war's most famous battle. In January 1815, British forces attacked New Orleans. General Andrew Jackson, with a ragtag army of soldiers, pirates, and freed slaves, crushed the British in one of America's most decisive victories. Ironically, the war had already ended. The Treaty of Ghent had been signed weeks earlier, but news traveled too slowly. The Treaty of Ghent. Who won the war? By December 24, 1814, both sides were exhausted. The Treaty of Ghent ended the war, declaring no real winner. Impressment wasn't even mentioned in the treaty, but Britain stopped it anyway. The Native American resistance collapsed without British support, allowing U.S. expansion to continue. While the war officially ended in a stalemate, the U.S. considered it a victory for standing up to Britain a second time. Casualties and consequences: 15,000 people from the United States died in this war. British Empire in Canada lost 10,000 lives, and Native American tribes, thousands lost their lives, and their confederation was shattering. More importantly, the war reshaped history. Conclusion. The War of 1812 is often overshadowed by other conflicts, but it shaped nations, created legends, and proved that the United States could hold its own against a world superpower. It gave America its anthem, its military heroes, and a renewed sense of national pride. Was it a necessary war or a war that could have been avoided? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible historical deep dives.